Akim. I want to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Rakakadash. Double honors to the elder apostles of Great Millstone who teach and rule well. And Shalom to the sincere Akim, spreading this truth in sincerity. Shalom. Yeah, so in this video, which is going to be in transit as I'm on my way to the project, I want to speak on, the incident that took place, in the park, with one of the brothers, that occurred recently. And the thing that we do basically in Holland, or at least in GMS South Holland, because, that's, the camp that I'm a part of, is, the two people on the outside, they basically, keep track of what's going on the outside parts, man. So that basically, the part from, the camera which stands in the middle all the way to the side, is being checked, quote unquote, by watchmen. People that watch out to see if any danger is approaching, man. And basically what happened with the brother in America, he basically was standing all by himself. This dude approaches, makes a scene, which, when I look at the whole situation, I'd be like, could have been, a paid person, to basically stir up some things, basically a nobody getting paid some money, being overhanded a gun, could be like that, or indeed it could have been, just a random, Edomite, with with basically with a piece of metal, stirring some things up, man. You know what I mean? So, no matter the situation, no matter, how it was set up, it did happen. And for us, those are moments that we're able to learn from, situations that teach us, how to basically improve ourselves, when we're standing in the highways and byways, man. And one of the things that Elder Apostle Tahar also mentioned was like, why is he standing over there in the park by himself, where not a lot of people are standing? Which, it is quite understandable that, you follow after the footsteps of the Elder Apostles, which, at one point in time, they also moved out of the cities, to basically, stand in the more rural areas, to stand somewhere where, not a lot of people are coming. But the point is, they are with multiple people. They're with more people. So, yeah, I do understand that if you want to follow after the example of the Elder Apostles, even if you're by yourself, that is quite understandable. But to apply a little bit of logic and understanding about if that is safe all by yourself, because Elder Apostle himself also mentioned, like, the moment that you are in a more crowded area, you have bystanders, man. A situation like that would not occur as quickly, even though there have been brothers and camps that have been threatened, with a peace, man. That have been threatened like that, if I'm correct, even people from the Mexican cartel, putting on some threats, where one of the brothers said, "Oh, you're gonna basically, threaten, the prophets of the Heavenly Father," where he was like, "Whoa, whoa," then he snapped out of it and got back in his car, but in a situation like that, then you have witnesses, then you might have cameras, so that a situation like that, is easily basically recorded, and in the case of, the brother that was standing all by himself, yeah, he had it on his camera as he was going live, if I'm correct, he was going live, but if something would have occurred, and he would not have gone live, he would be gone in 15 minutes, man. It would be harder for, for the basically for the police, to track the dude that basically, pulled that piece and basically pulled it, man. You know what I mean? But hey, call Allah, Yahweh, Shem Yahushua, Shem Kakadash, that nothing happened with the brother. That he was able to overtake, the man coming to his camp to stir up some things. But this situation served also a great example, of what can happen when you're not circumspect, man. And last Saturday, as we was teaching, as a combined camp, of GMS Holland, as the teaching, how you say that? As time went by, basically, and the other brothers, joined on to the camp. I, as a reader, I moved a little bit to the side and became a watcher, because the place where we're standing, a lot of funky things happen, man. A lot of people over there, things can happen in an instant because of how crowded it is, So I decided, let me be a watcher. Let me watch over, the scenery. Let me watch over the people, to see what is going on. And at a certain moment, I was holding on a sign. If I'm correct, it was the 12 tribe sign that I hold on to, which was necessary at that moment, to be used in the teaching, because someone approached the camp with questions, which. Before that actually happened, that moment, that scene wherein he was being educated by the brothers, he approached me directly. He came running, well, not like running, but he came straight walking towards me. But me being that watcher, I had also to use some discernment, to discern whether this man was a threat or not. But the vibe that I received from him, didn't give me any vibes as him being a threat, seeing he's an older man, the way that he, like, I didn't see him being a threat. So when you're a watcher, certain discernment also has to be in place, because not everyone, that steps up to the camp has an ill intent. I remember this one time when we were still teaching in Amsterdam, this one dude that approached the camp. He wanted to give us some money, but he came in a certain way that could signal him being a threat. So one of the brothers, he was like, hey. But then, basically the first in command of our camp, he was like, leave the man, And all he did eventually was give us some money, because he acknowledged us for, doing the right thing. Which that money was later down, passed on, and eventually, given unto the elder apostles, man. You see, so there has to be discernment into place if you're a watchman, because not everyone that approaches, is a threat. Some people might have, certain issues, or might not have some social intelligence where they're able to basically show themselves forth as not coming with any threats, or approaching without harm. And if you react in a certain way that is not fit for the circumstance, hey, that might be a stumbling block onto those that approach the campman. So like I said, discernment has to be into place. But I digress a little bit, because it's still edifying. But the point that I actually wanted to make was, like, as I was holding onto the sign, and the teacher wanted to point out some things, he was giving me the directions. But at the same time, I was trying to keep an eye on my side, as being that watchman. So what I tried to do is I tried to tell the brother next to me, like, hey, can you keep an eye for me on this side? Keep an eye on me on this side. And he was like, yeah, but the angels camp round about them that feared to have a father. I said, yeah, but still, they can come up to us. They can come up to us and still trying to do things, because the last time we was in Utrecht, this one Moroccan dude, he basically, stood next to, the first in command of GMS South Holland and caught him off guard, man. Wherein, it almost escalated, because he was like, hey, the fuck's happening right over here, man? Because he got too close. He got too close, man, and we should not let people, get too close to us, in a situation like that, because we don't know what their intentions are at first. When that dude came and approached me last Saturday, I told him also that he could ask the questions that he had to the teacher, and what he did is he actually stood, still very much in front of us. So I asked him, could you step back a little bit because of the space, create a little bit of space between you and us, which he then understood, and he started to stand next to the camera, and then he was being edified, by the second in command eventually of, GMS Holland, you see. But then as the video that I'm actually talking about concerning what happened in the park with the brother, that this dude pulled up with a piece. When that one was dropped in our camp chat, I basically tagged the brother like, hey, you see, this is why I asked you to basically look on my right side, to look on the right side of the camp that I was, standing watch on. And then he was like, yeah, now I understand, because when we are going to the highways and byways, man, we're basically going to the battlefield. We're going to the battlefield, man, and things can get ugly, which, in my own experience, things never went, that ugly. Things went, escalated to the moment that you had intense discussions, but nothing like that which is happening in America, man. People pulling guns, being threatened, things like that. You see, so basically what I wanna say in this video is like, the things that Elder Apostle Tahar actually brought out are very, good points. Don't go into the highways and byways by yourself in secluded areas. And if you go by yourself, make sure, that you are actually in a place where there are multiple people that are eyewitnesses and are able to chime in, because the Heavenly Father is able to put the Spirit upon the heathens as well to help you out. That has happened to us as well, man. We was busy, a man trying to make some fuss, a two-third Jake, or two-third like Jake, comes to the aid of the camp and tries to pull the man away and tells us to leave them alone. So things like that can happen. But if you're there all by yourself, then it is very hard for the Heavenly Father to put the Spirit upon a man, to come to your aid. You see what I mean? And the best setup, like like Elder Apostle also said, 4 to 5 men. If you have 4 to 5 men standing in a camp, the likelihood of something happening, decreases, man, because not only are you now more in number, most likely you're more in number, unless a whole pack of people comes up to you, trying to make a fuss, but, you're more in number to the point where you can have 2 people on the outsides, being more mindful, of what is going on around the camp. Then you have 2 readers and a main speaker. You might even have someone behind the camera, if that is necessary. But in the case where, you have smaller camps, the camera can be pointed at all the brothers. And those that are actually standing watch, they do not necessarily have to be on camera, unless they're actually, at that moment, speaking or want to add on to what is being said. When they're being inspired by the Heavenly Father to bring out a point, So, what I do myself, to ensure a situation like this, is to make sure that I'm standing watch, looking, from the middle of the camera to basically to up into the wall where I'm standing at, man. And not this week, but the week prior to that, and Edomite also wanted to approach the camp, which, at that moment, I was not aware of him because I was standing next to the camera because it was raining. The camp had to be a little bit more compact. I was standing next to the camera under the treetops. But then I was like, yeah, but this brother that is standing opposite of me, he's supposed to watch my back. As I'm watching his back, he's supposed to watch my back. So these things have to be made more. This has to be made more aware to the minds of the brothers. That we should not really be negligent concerning watching. And basically at all times be aware that we are watching and that we have to basically watch our brother's back, man. Even if you're not being told, to watch a brother's back, you should still watch your brother's back, out of, protection, man. That protective spirit has to come out, man. Am I my brother's keeper? Yeah, you are your brother's keeper, man. Watch his back. Because this Edomite, he wanted to do something. He wanted to do something, man. But the first in command of GMS South Holland, he was like, fainting toward him, like, oh yeah, what you gonna do then? What you gonna do then? Then, the old Edomite dude was like, oh shit, he was phased. He was phased by the situation, and then he moved. Then he moved basically around us, looking still. He was moving around about us, but then he was still looking to us, talking to us in a certain way, like as if he's, like agitated, vexed, with their presence, man. You see, so that shows you the importance of watching each other's backs and having, basically the surroundings in check. Check what is going on around us, man. And if you're all by yourself, that makes you an easy target. Man. If it wasn't, for the Heavenly Father allowing that situation, to take place the way it did, with the brother teaching by himself, it could have went another way, man. It could have went another way wherein this man, really could have shut up, this brother. But the Heavenly Father did not want it to happen like that, but let it serve as an example of how we, ought to be, how we should move within this ministry, man. You see? And that is of great importance. The Heavenly Father, warning the people, warning us in a way that does not cause, any, how you say that? Any casualties yet. Up until the moment, that the Heavenly Father does indeed allow casualties to happen because of, not obeying, the warning that was put forth, by this example, man. You see? So yeah, there's not much more that I can add onto this video. So with that, I do want to, give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Kabadash. Double honors to the elder apostles of Great Millstone who teach and rule well, and Shalom to the sincere Akim, spreading this truth and sincerity. Shalom.